Hi, I'm Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of Regulator. Welcome to this week's Regulatory Roundup. Joining me is my co-host, Minnie Mouse. The regulator of the week is the Federal Reserve. This week, Chairman Jerome Powell released a video of him talking about the global payments landscape. To save you from having to watch the riveting 5-minute video, basically he said that they're studying these developments, especially in terms of issuing CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies. Also, the Fed was represented at the big 2021 CoinDesk conference. Governor Brainerd gave a speech about how the Fed views these changes, noting that the movement toward digital payments was already happening pre-pandemic, but that the pandemic underscored the benefits, especially related to the unbanked. So folks who didn't have a bank account on file with the IRS and getting them payments, and the reality that a digital payment system would be cheaper and easier and more secure than snail mail, mailing paper checks. It seems like there's a lot of interest by the Federal Reserve to be moving towards digital payments. The topic of the week is cybersecurity fines. Where do I begin? Well, New York made a killing this week, busting 3 different companies. 2 of them, insurance companies, were fined for a joint $1.8 million because they never implemented multi-factor authentication, but worse, they claimed that they were in compliance with their New York cyber standards rule, which of course requires multi-factor authentication, all of which came into light after 2 big data breaches. The second fine for $200,000 was because a water filter company had a potential data breach. After an internal investigation, they were like, no data breach, we're good. But then some customers complained and they had to hire a third party to look at the data breach. And the third party was like, yeah, there was a data breach. And in fact, there was totally a patch 3 years ago that you could have downloaded to avoid it. So they ended up notifying their customers way later than they were supposed to and got a fine. Also in cyber, the White House released a statement on cybersecurity as one of the preeminent challenges of our time. It walks through what the White House has done already and what they're trying to do with the American Jobs Plan around cyber. Tennessee passed an insurance data security law that is coming into effect on July 1st, and the law is going to be toughening security requirements that Tennessee insurance carriers have to follow. It was a fun week in Regulatory Fight Club. Pat Toomey, the Republican voice at the Senate Banking Committee, is still making a huge stink about Biden's executive orders on the financial agencies to look into climate risk from an economic perspective. Most recently, Biden directed Janet Yellen, the head of the Financial Stability Oversight Council, to issue a report on climate risk in the economy. Toomey thinks this is a huge overreach and beyond the mandates of all of these agencies. Also this week, the chairman of the SEC, a member of the Financial Stability Oversight Council, Allison Herron-Lee, gave a keynote where she essentially made the case for climate risk and ESG and why these issues are material to investors. And an interesting market signal here, at a different speech this week, she addressed the gamification of trading, and she noticed that, get this, behavioral nudges and push notifications on certain of these apps, like Robinhood, have resulted in as much as 40 times more trading than other platforms, and, according to her, even more concerning, trading of riskier options products to the tune of nearly 88 times that of other platforms. So you can be sure that the SEC will probably start putting out rules on the gamification of trading. Back to Regulatory Fight Club, Sherrod Brown, the Democratic voice at the Senate Banking Committee, is going after the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, questioning the FinTech charters that they granted to several cryptocurrency exchanges under the Trump administration. I'm pretty sure the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, which is totally annoyed by the OCC FinTech charter, will enjoy watching the response to this one. Other random federal stuff. The Commerce Department is focusing on the semiconductor supply chain. After a big hearing with the execs of some of these companies, the Commerce Secretary has concluded that this is a risk, almost the way foreign oil is, because we're so reliant on it, yet we don't produce any domestically. So that was a novel alert, at least to me. Also this week, the OCC issued an interesting report on the key issues facing the federal banking system after COVID-19. And while the banks maintained sound capital and, of course, stayed alive, their future profitability is in question because interest rates are so low right now. For those of you following SROs, CME was officially selected by ARC after a big RFP process to be responsible for quoting the forward-looking SOFR rates. So good luck to you, CME. Also, NASDAQ just had a proposed rule on SPACs rejected by the SEC. So if you're following SPACs, go read that one. The Connecticut Insurance Department is the next regulator to be reviewing the use of AI, and this time in relation to insurance. Also, we had some fun busts in our Find Tracker this week. 2 guys in Kentucky took bribes to stop bidding in a farmland auction. And if they are convicted, it will be a fine of $1 million each and 10 years in prison. The California Attorney General busted 15 people for a big retirement savings Ponzi scheme that targeted elderly Filipino victims. They claimed the investments were building a resort in the Philippines, which of course didn't actually exist. For those of you who hate slow internet, you'll love this. The FTC busted a company for selling an upgraded internet plan that allegedly included faster download speeds when of course it not only did not, but they were not ever capable of providing it. And for those of you who hate robocalls, a California guy was sentenced to 10 years in prison for working with call centers in Peru that threatened Spanish-speaking US residents to pay them for bills that didn't exist. In some ways, I'm like, yeah, people are greedy, but like the lengths that some people will go to perpetrate some of these crimes, I'm like, you had to know you were going to jail, right? And speaking of breaking free from prison, I'm about to attend my very first post-pandemic happy hour on a New York City rooftop hosted by Prospect 33, one of the best, most innovative reg change and digital transformation firms in the world. I may or may not be on the leadership team. And that's it this week for Regulalytics US Alerts. Join me every Wednesday morning on LinkedIn and YouTube.